Now, before anyone else can make the tacky joke in the comments about my review of The Flash being late, I'm gonna go ahead and do it myself. So pretend as if I didn't just make that previous statement.
Isn't it funny how The Flash is a superhero known for his super speed, yet I was slow to share my thoughts on the film about said superhero with the super speed?
Fun fact, The Flash released worldwide in theaters on June 16, 2023. During the initial release, I wasn't able to catch the film seeing as I was in Europe filming a show, Malta to be exact. And not only did I have a lack of free time to see the movie, but Malta also lacks a lot of movie theaters, so it would have been a pain to get to one regardless. Strange, seeing as a lot of movies are filmed in Malta. Matter of fact, Gladiator 2 was filmed nearby when I was there, and I knew several people who were working on the set. Curious to see how that follow-up to such a classic from 20 years ago turns out, but that's neither here nor there. Let's get back to The Flash. I've been hesitant to watch this one because The Flash is one of my favorite superheroes. I mean, what little boy didn't want super speed growing up? The early 2000s Justice League and Justice League Unlimited were classics. Even the live-action TV show with Grant Gustin was decent the first few seasons before the CW said to hell with quality writing. So it broke my heart to see social media clowning the Flash movie during my time away in Europe. It's been reported that The Flash is the greatest superhero flop to hit cinema in history. Reports claim this film has lost over $200 million. This is insane to hear, seeing as most people know who The Flash is.
Barry Allen is the Flash.
Even non-comic book fans know the Scarlet Speedster because, once again, what little boy did not want to be the Flash at some point? Barry Allen and Wally West have brand recognition even if their Rogues Gallery doesn't. And the Rogues Gallery probably doesn't need the brand recognition either, seeing as if the mainstream found out that the men who can phase through walls' greatest arch nemesis is a guy with a gun that shoots ice. They'd probably get clowned. And I don't care how cool NetherRealm made Captain Cold seem in Injustice 2. He's still a guy with a popsicle ray gun, and you expect me to believe the man who's fast enough to travel through time just cannot stop slipping on the floor?
How pathetic.
The peak of the slander is when news broke Fandango was doing a 2-for-1 special on ticket sales because ticket sales were so low. And guess what? Nobody still watched. And now here we are a couple months later, and The Flash is out now on streaming services, so I figured I'd check it out. What I witnessed is a product that tastes like a TV dinner that needed a couple more minutes in the microwave. The Flash is undercooked in every way possible. The writing in this movie is best described as mediocre. I swear I'm not trying to be funny when I say that The Flash will have you thinking the writer's strike had been going on for some time now. And if you're unaware of the writer's strike going on in Hollywood and why it matters, I'll leave a link in the description box below to the video that I did on that. Now back to The Flash. This movie attempts to be equal parts comedy as it is superhero film, and the keyword here is attempts. The overall plot of the film is okay, but the person-to-person interactions is where the film truly drags. A lot of these jokes sound like they were written by someone who plays last at their local open mic every weekend. The jokes consist of a lot of self-deprecation, but none of them stick their landing. It feels like DC was trying to go for Wally West, and they forgot the protagonist in this film is Barry Allen, who is a much more serious Flash. Even still, Wally was funny because he was an overconfident prankster who often fell short. This Flash just does constant stupid shit that they want us to laugh at, but for me, it felt like low-hanging fruit. Correct me if I'm wrong, but last I read, this version of Flash is supposed to be autistic and have ADHD, so why would I laugh at any of his antics if I know he cannot help it? It just felt tacky. It felt like this script was written by someone who thinks they're in tune with the kids because they had Barry saying the goofiest stuff. There was a scene where the gang was in trouble and he had to run, so then Barry shouts, "It's time to dipset," or how about he made a mistake and then he shouts, "Oh, Funyuns." I was just like, what part of this is supposed to be funny? It's just cringy. There's also a ton of storytelling cliches you can see coming from a mile away. There's this scene where Iris comes over to Barry's place and she says, "Oh geez, your place is a lot cleaner than I thought it would be." And then I instantly said to myself, something is about to fall out of the closet. And guess what? Barry proceeds to say thank you, and then a bunch of trash falls out of the closet. Boo! The first half of this movie is doing its darnest to make you laugh. After it fails at that miserably, the second half of the movie has a much darker tone, and this is thanks to the introduction of the OG Michael Keaton Batman. Dude looks great, by the way, for 71. Sadly, OG Batman's novelty wears off pretty quickly because, once again, the script. I think Mike did the best he could with what he was working with, but even he couldn't save this mess. I hate seeing him come out of Batman retirement for this film too. It's a great disservice to his legacy. The reason Keaton's acting couldn't save this movie is because you can't ignore how bad the CG looks in this film. The visual effects are everywhere thanks to Flash's incredible power, but the on-screen representation is something similar to what you'd see in a fan-produced film on YouTube. Friendly reminder, this movie cost upwards of $220 million to make, so how did this happen? The other major character that appears in this bootleg edition of Justice League is Sasha Calle's Supergirl. The best way I can describe Supergirl is, she's in the movie, didn't add much in terms of plot or emotion. I mean, she was literally a brooding tank that appears in the second half of the movie and agrees to fight against Zod. She added no clever lines, battle strats, quotables, nothing. And to make matters worse, I think her and Batman's appearances didn't hit the same, seeing as they both appear in the trailers before the movie release. The trailers are the best thing about this movie. Whomever edited the Flash's trailers deserves a raise because they did an awesome job of pulling the wool over all our eyes. Now, since Barry effed up the timeline, there's a point in the movie where he attempts to rescue who he thought would be Superman being held captive, but in turn, he finds out it's Supergirl in that timeline. That moment would have hit a lot harder if they let it be a surprise in the film and not in the trailers. Batman 2. And why is the second Flash in this movie being played by a younger Ezra Miller? It should have been Grant Gustin. At least give him a special appearance in the movie at some point, considering Ezra Miller did show up in his show. I think the reason we all let these reveals slide in the trailer is because we were all under the assumption that if they're cool with showing this in the trailer, then there has to be some other crazy plot twist to compensate for these early reveals. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to let you know.
That was a lie.
I'm sitting there watching this movie like, that's it? You can pick up the whole plot of the film from the movie trailer on YouTube, and that is pathetic. The action sequences aren't even cool in this movie. The best fight scenes star Supergirl and Batman. This is a Flash movie. Why is that even a thing? But I will say, all in all, I am happy I waited until the digital release to see this. Attending a movie theater is expensive these days. The average ticket price for an American is currently $11. I'm in LA, it's like 20. Then if you want popcorn and candy, that's another $100 million, so this movie better be damn good. Sadly, the best way I can review The Flash is, The Flash. Not as awful as Morbius, but still not good. But hey, I'm just saying. Now, if you made it this far in the video, there's 3 things you need to know. First thing is that this post-credit scene contains spoilers. The second thing you need to know is that a card will appear on the screen at some point that you can click. That card will take you to my video on the Hollywood writer's strike that I mentioned earlier. And the third thing you need to know is that if you're expecting another generic, isn't it funny how Ezra Miller plays the Flash, but he's the reverse Flash in real life joke, you're gonna be disappointed. Not to mention, I'm funnier than that. Instead, I want to point your attention to the film's ending. At the end, Barry saves his dad and he thinks he repaired the timeline. Batman calls to chop it up with Barry on the phone, and then he tells Barry he's pulling up on him. Now, as Bruce is pulling up in his fancy car, Barry's not greeted by Geely, but instead, George Clooney's Batman. Now, clearly, the point of this moment is to indicate that Barry hadn't repaired the problems that he had caused on the timeline. The problem is, why would you deliver that message by making the final plot twist to your movie be the Batman with the nipples on his suit? It wasn't funny, it wasn't cool, it wasn't cheeky. Everyone and their mama hates George Clooney's nipple-laced Batman and Robin. Now, if this is the direction James Gunn thought would save DC films, then James Gunn needs to take DC's live-action films out back with a gun and shoot them. But hey, I'm just saying.